Good morning, Malta and Gozo, and welcome to another edition of Lovin Daily. I'm Tim, joined today by Julian, and these are the stories we're going to be discussing today. A Maltese magistrate has been charged with VAT-related offences. Bolt drivers are raising the alarm in light of a new 20% commission hike. The Prime Minister has remained silent on his minister, Edward ZAMMIT following further revelations of his chats with murder suspect YORGEN. Chris FEARNE has said in Parliament that he and his colleagues were tricked and by people they used to trust and admire. And a Maltese woman who left a bad apartment review has been ordered by a court to pay €200 in moral damages. So, Ju, exclusive story by Lovin Malta yesterday. You worked on this. Monica Vella, a magistrate, a Gozo magistrate, has been charged with VAT-related offences.
Yes. No, it was a Lovin Malta exclusive revealed yesterday. Basically, Maltese magistrate Monica Vella has been arraigned in court on VAT-related offences. So yesterday, police confirmed with Lovin Malta that a Maltese magistrate was arraigned in court on 23rd July 2021, and the next sitting is scheduled to take place on 15th October. Now, the police themselves inform us that Vella was the magistrate who was arraigned. However, well-informed sources confirmed as such. They say basically the whole issue stems with income from work Vella generated outside her duties as a magistrate. There's been a sort of conflicting reports on that. We've heard issues sort of about declaring income from work at the university and sort of work on property and stuff like that. Despite Vella being arraigned in court, she still remains part of the judiciary. In fact, just last Saturday, she was the magistrate presiding over the incident involving a 14-year-old and a stabbing incident in Slema. So we'll see exactly what's going to happen and whether any action is going to be taken. Now, Vella herself has already landed in hot water before. Remember, she has already had all her cases in Gozo removed from her because of her slow pace. However, these revelations sort of give a whole new complexion to her being removed from the Gozo courts in the first place. Now, on to Vella herself. Now, I mean, if it was any other normal sort of case, I would sort of say, a VAT offence, it's just a VAT offence, but, she is a member of the judiciary. She's a magistrate who is meant to be upholding the law, not breaking it, whatever the case may be. Can you imagine what sort of message it sends out there to anybody? I mean, anybody who has to pay VAT, who has to pay tax. I mean, why should I pay VAT if my own magistrates, my own judges aren't even doing so themselves? I don't know what you think about it.
Well, yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? So I'd usually feel skeptical about seeing police dragging people to court, wasting the court's resources over issues such as VAT, things that can be settled administratively as long as someone pays their dues. But this is a magistrate we're talking about, someone who's meant to represent the law. So if they're not going to uphold it, then what on earth are you doing there, right? It'd be interesting to see what happens. Malta doesn't really have a track record of removing judiciary members from the bench, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember the last time a magistrate or the judge or a magistrate or a judge has actually been removed from their role for any reason whatsoever. So yeah, it's now probably going to be up to the Commission for the Administration of Justice and the Justice Ministry to see the way forward. Moving on to our next story, Bolt cab drivers have raised alarm after the company announced that the commission that individual drivers will have to pay the company has increased from 16.5% to 20% effective as of today. Now, the reason they're doing this, they're saying, is because of the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions and the huge financial loss they've suffered. Now, many people will probably find this curious, seeing as Bolt might appear on paper to be one of the companies that profited as a result of the pandemic. You see all the food couriers driving everywhere in the streets. However, there is another side to this, which is that Bolt also has, in fact, it started off as a cab company, and the cab industry has taken a massive hit as a result of the lack of tourists and also the lack of events. So Bolt seems to be forced to hike its commission rates, and drivers who spoke to Lovin Malta were very, very concerned. One of them actually said, "We're dying of hunger now." which really puts into perspective the fact that for some people, this is a full-time job for them, even though it's not meant to be, or that's how the platform was set up. It's meant to be a way to supplement your income, but some people decided to make it their full-time job, and decisions like this show how precarious such a decision can be, and that these platforms are great. Absolutely, they should definitely stay around, but perhaps don't make it a full-time income. That's not because it's the market can be what it is.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, right? There's sort of a demand and supply thing. I think sort of what's happened with these digital labor platforms, they've sort of exploded, have grown exponentially, and sort of everybody is playing catch up with them. They do offer some forms, quite a lot of benefits, right, for the people who use them, the employees, even though they're not quite, right? They get to use the service, make their own hours, work their own time, and make an income for it. On the other hand, you're also, vulnerable to sort of really clear changes, right? There's nothing stopping this digital labor platform upping their commission fee, right? Not just from 20%, but to 30 to 40 to 50%, right? And now no one really is there going to protect you. Now the government has said they're going to address this issue, but we've been waiting, I think, a bit over than a year for actually any results. Now both themselves have landed in hot water in the past as well, from the issues with food couriers, and even with some loans they've had to repay. We'll see how the situation develops, but just for people out there, before you're going to, sign up to the digital labor platform and make it your full-time job, not a part-time gig, make sure you know sort of all the things that can happen to you.
Let's be careful not to over-regulate, though, because that can stifle the industry entirely.
Yes, for sure.
It can be a temptation to do that and impose certain conditions for something that at the end of the day is meant to be a freelance job, and that can have a counter effect and end up with more people out of work. So any kind of regulation must take this.
Yes, at least as long as people aren't exploited, right? So on to our next story. Prime Minister Robert Abela has suddenly gone silent on whether or not he's going to take action against Justice Minister Edward ZAMMIT Lewis, following revelations of a series of messages to YORGEN FENECH in 2019. This was after he was outed as the owner of 17 Black. That's a Dubai-based company linked to alleged government corruption. But a few months before, FENECH was actually arrested with the Caruana Galizia assassination. For those of you who don't know, in these messages, ZAMMIT Lewis did things like mock stupid Labour voters, said how he was proud to be FENECH's friend, and even Lovin Malta wrote about this morning that FENECH congratulated Edward ZAMMIT Lewis soon after he was reinstated to the cabinet, sort of telling him, hugs, you're my friend, I'm really happy for you. Lovin Malta tried repeatedly to get comments from the Prime Minister to see whether or not he's going to take action. An OPM spokesperson refused to comply despite numerous requests to do so, instead sort of saying, that Robert Abela is committed to implementing the necessary recommendations introduced in the public inquiry linked to the assassination of Caruana Galizia. The major problem here is that Edward ZAMMIT Lewis, as the Justice Minister, is probably going to be really responsible for helping draft some of these key reforms. I mean, in this position, his role is simply untenable, right? This is not the first time we heard about ZAMMIT Lewis's close relationship with FENECH, I mean, Lovin Malta had previously reported about him staying at a hotel for free, right? We've even reported about how there are existence of hundreds of more messages between the pair, and God knows what else we're going to find out. I don't know about you, Tim, but the situation is just sort of spiraling.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite clear, that YORGEN FENECH's phone is a gold mine of information. They shared, like you said, hundreds of messages. Although from a lot of what we've seen so far, a lot of the conversations seem to have been one-sided from ZAMMIT Lewis himself. That I found quite funny, that there were messages which ZAMMIT Lewis told YORGEN FENECH and YORGEN FENECH didn't answer. There's an element of almost desperation there. But there's going to be a protest tonight at 7:30 p.m. outside Edward ZAMMIT Lewis's ministry in Valletta, organised by Republican, I think a couple of other people. And it's been promoted a bit, so yeah, let's see what's going to happen. Moving on, in kind of related in a way, the Deputy Prime Minister this time, Chris FEARNE, delivered a pretty powerful speech in Parliament against people who he used to trust and people he used to admire. So this was during a debate on the Caruana Galizia public inquiry findings, and Chris FEARNE said, and I'm going to quote, "It's not easy to work with people you trust for years and then find out that they weren't necessarily what you believed they were. It's not easy, but we must have the courage to recognize it and where necessary change things." Now, he didn't mention any names, even though it seemed quite clear that it was a reference to Joseph Muscat and Keith Cambry, but I think it was still the most powerful admission by someone from a very senior government position that, things weren't right. It wasn't just a mistake here and there. There was something terribly, terribly wrong at the top of government, and for whatever reason, the cabinet didn't respond to it. And yeah, obviously, like the big question is whether this will be translated into action rather than just some strong parliamentary words. Are you confident or?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a mixed bag, right? So I really do appreciate the sentiment, right? Especially to see like the Deputy Prime Minister sort of stand up on the parliamentary floor and discuss the issue so openly. But for me, number one, it's a little bit too late, right? I mean, a lot of these people who are currently in government were there from the start, didn't say anything, didn't stand up, actually defended the government and its players vociferously, and now sort of that everything's out of the bag, all the dirty laundry has sort of already been aired, is now that sort of we're starting to address, the concerns over there. And beyond that, I mean, yes, some changes have been implemented and there have been some reforms, but the same underlying issues that sort of led to this culture of impunity the public inquiry spoke about still remains to today, right? So we just spoke about it, the lack of an action against people like ZAMMIT Lewis, the lack of an action against people like Minister Carmelo Abela, right? I mean, we need to start sort of
getting involved in a heist.
Yeah, exactly. Allegations that you've been involved in a heist. Like, I mean, some action was taken against Rosiane Kutaya, but these people still remain very much part of the Labour Party, still remain part of Abela's structure, and I'd really like to just see these things finally addressed so we can finally start moving forward and not let Daphne's assassination count for absolutely nothing. Onto our last story, quite an important one for anyone who loves to leave quite a horrible review at restaurants or any hotels they've stayed. A Maltese woman has been ordered to pay €200 in moral damages for leaving the bad review at a holiday flat she stayed at. Madeleine Bonnici sort of had stayed at an apartment, and the company eventually withheld €87 from a €280 deposit for the property. This was for certain damages and stuff like that. Now the woman sort of ended up in a fury and even threatened the company that she was going to leave a bad review. And that she did. She left about a 2.5 on 10 rating on each category on the booking, sort of even saying in quote, "What is the worst host ever with very bad manners." This eventually really had quite an effect on the stay itself, with the company claiming that it used to be on the first page of Booking.com, but the bad review dropped it quite a lot behind. Now, in the first case, it was actually thrown out of the courts, right? They didn't sort of agree with this, that it was sort of a libelous claim or that this woman has conducted any sort of damage to the company. However, on appeal in front of Judge Lawrence Mintoff, that decision was changed. He sort of said, that it was clear that sort of the only bad review she left was about a dripping geyser, which, wasn't sufficient enough to allow a 2.5 on 10 review for every category on the thing.
Now, what the hell? Seriously, as in, it sounds funny, but it's not. I think it's deadly serious, something like this. So this is a judge telling people what they can and cannot review. So he wasn't at the place himself. Like, I don't know this place, I don't know how good it is or not, but I think that's completely irrelevant. I think people should have a right to place their own reviews on Booking.com and put how many stars or half stars they see fit. And the judge shouldn't say that you only complain about the geezer, not about the service. So what on earth is this? Seriously, as in this, I honestly think this could have serious freedom of speech repercussions. It's not something to be taken.
No,
it's not something to be taken lightly, and it could even open up a huge can of worms for future judgments. So yeah.
Yeah,
Watch
this
this
is sort
space.
of it's sort of even nothing new, right? So even abroad, like last year, I think in the UK, somebody actually had to pay damages of £25,000, you know, for leaving what's called a libelous review. So you know, some real actual major concerns, like you're saying about it, you know. So I mean, you know, next time you're leaving a bad review, almost be a bit cautious. That's it from us for today, and remember, have a day full of loving.